Greetings, YouTube. This is 3coursethoughts here. Today with another video topic. And let's get right into it. So today's topic is the topic of society, the ultimate prisoner's dilemma. So let's get into it. I hope you guys are having a great day, by the way, or night. Before we start, as usual, I have a few terms that I'm going to be using within the video. So I'm just going to define them really fast, and then we're going to get on to the next stage. So when I say society, I mean basically, for the scope of this video, it's an environment where uh, individuals of the same species are interacting with one another. So this is going to act as a semi-tribe. As I go into the video, I'm going to explain further what that means. Now, the next term is prisoner's dilemma. I'm sure you may have heard this term before, somewhere along the lines of cooperation and dating and things of that nature. So how I'm going to define it, basically, it's a situation in which an individual, it's between a party of individuals or one person, well, two people or a group of people, and each person has to make a choice between cooperation and betrayal. And while they're doing that, the other party also has to make that choice. The next term is half truth, and half truth is usually something when I'm defining it as it's something where you give information that is truthful on the surface, but you may be holding back information. So basically, that may be done to avert conflict via being polite or deception of some kind. Things of that nature keep society running. So I've been throwing around this word society. I defined it previously. But what are its origins? Before we get into kind of picking it apart a little bit, what are its origins? Well, probably back in prehistoric times, we lived in the wilderness. We were hunter-gatherer society, nomadic society. So society emerged probably as something as an alternative means to living in the wilderness, hunting for food, and you localize yourself into one area, and you protect that area with armed forces and so forth. So as such, why would that be important? Because it's probably built on the premise where the weak don't have to hide from the strong. So if you're in the wilderness, there's strong animals, probably stronger people, and so forth. But if you form a community, you can protect of similar individuals, whether they're weak or similar ideals or something of that nature. You can band together. You can play off each other's minds and also strengths and weaknesses and make a cohesive force. And if you centralize yourself in one area or a set of areas, then that becomes like a stronghold of sorts, which is in essence what society is. Now, society now propagated itself, it continued itself through technology and cooperation. So these two things, technology and cooperation, is very important. And the various ages or time periods within human history where tools are used, like simple tools within that of the Stone Age, when people were more nomadic, and then some people got certain ideas or certain conditions arose and they adapted to the situation, and then agriculture was discovered, Neolithic revolution started, and this is where you start having societies as we know it emerge in a very simplistic sense, like mini cities, or an example of this is like the ancient river civilizations. And then you have these cities now, sets of cities by riverbeds and so forth, and they start branching out because the population increases. They see that this works, and we go to the next stage much, much later when technology increases again and there's more cooperation, the industry, the industrial revolution, and so forth. They utilize steel and other kinds of forms of technology, meld it together, and advance and move further, moving the greater society forward. After this, you have a longer stretch of time, I would say about 20th century-ish to now, to the contemporary period now, the modern 21st century. We have the advent of the computer and the information age, which links more, now there's more of a global link. So it's not necessarily separate cities or cities that have branched themselves out, but now you can be interconnected with people you've never seen before, like I'm doing with you right now. Now we've gotten history out of the way. How does society operate on a fundamental level? Well, one of the ways it operates on a fundamentally is that there is usually the individual who's a part of society, a member of society, and they have their biological impulses, desires, and so forth, which is usually very irrational. You know, you have these impulses, desires, and so forth. And it's not like anything that you even have to think about. It's more or less natural, second nature, if you will. Whereas the consciousness, that's more of a rational type of deal, a rational type of function. Like you're taught things, you reason things out, you think about it, you learn, you exchange information, and so forth. Another manner in which society operates, it has a hierarchy. Now this one is big because there are different types of hierarchies. There's hierarchies based on socioeconomic class, and I'm not saying that, I'm not giving an opinion of which is better or worse. I'm just stating that this exists in society. Those are, like, let's say, give you an example, societies in which are more quote unquote on the capitalist scale. Those are more financial wealth. They're generally treated better or looked at more favorably and so forth because of how that society functions. There's also a social hierarchy. So this might be based on fashion or social skills, social standings, impressions, and so forth. Then there's the international hierarchy. Example of that would be like passport power. Like some countries, you can get your visa automatically for 90 days, just because you're a citizen of a particular country, or for like how international trades occur. Like you could put tariffs on one country, they can't do that to you, and so forth. Another manner in which society operates is, and this is probably one of the biggest ones, is ultimately run by food. The previous example I gave before with that Neolithic revolution, what made those nomads stop traveling besides the fear of being weaker and, you know, needing protection? It was food. This might not be as apparent in the modern day per se, because food is generally rampant. You know, there's a lot of artificial food, a lot of food that you can eat. May not be healthy per se, but it is food that you can consume. So our need is usually satiated. Now, how is society maintained? This is where the half-truth and prisoner's dilemma really come into play. The maintenance of society. How is it that society generally maintained itself? One of the ways it does so is through laws, the laws that are there, which are generally guidelines and also restrictions. I said before that individuals in society, groups, and so forth, they have the biological components of themselves, which is very on a more quote unquote irrational scale, which is basically desires and impulses. Superimposed with their more conscious / rational capabilities. These two are always competing with one another. As such, the laws now are guidelines to keep or better regulate this conflict. So basically, let's say you're hungry and you may or may not have money to purchase an apple. instead of going, if you go and just take the apple without paying for the apple, you're generally going to violate a law, which is, you're not supposed to steal something. And then there's a punishment that ensues. Let's say you're stronger than the person that you're stealing the apple from. The person who sells the apple is weaker than you are. That person who you stole the apple from, even if they're weaker than you are, they're protected by the law, the guideline and restrictions. The next portion is trends, fashion, and media, which propagates mnemonic or culture, which is basically a narrative or a way of life that is taught to young children, teenagers, and also adults. Like if you come from one country or another, there's a certain way of life, a certain way of doing things. There's certain things that are popular in the now, and it's going to be positively reinforced by the masses. If they either like it or that's all they know, whatever the reason being, if you kind of stay away from that, there may be a bit of a push-pull, and things of that nature. So that's another manner in which society is maintained. And then a final note on this, on societal maintenance, is that of schooling. So schooling is more of education training to be a member of society, which is basically you go to school not necessarily to learn about ABCs and 1, 2, 3, like mathematics and stuff. It's more to train you to be a member of society. Now, I'm not saying that students don't necessarily pick up this specific information like math concepts or English or anything like that. But what I'm saying is that it's more so to teach you in an indirect scale to become a member of society. You learn certain etiquettes and practice certain etiquettes when dealing with other people, like how to address people specifically outside of your training from your parents and so forth. So with the previous things I mentioned on society being said, there are personalized levels. There are different levels of society. So this is from the bottom of this pyramid. This is the biggest level, which is the biggest group. So sentient beings. I'm just gonna say like living things, but to make it simpler, I'll just say human beings. So say we're all the same species. We're all human beings, and so forth. Going down the scale is political scale, which is basically if you have probably same political affiliations, that's a sense of that narrows it down. And then it could be narrowed down further by one's nation, country, narrowed down even further by the state that you live in, if your country has states, narrowed down further by the city, narrowed down further by specific communities within the city, narrowed down further on a more personal scale with friends that you might have from work and so forth, although community can also go into work. Narrowed down even further family, and then narrowed down further to your individual. This ties also back to the universe is you, and you are the universe video I did previously. You could check in my videos and you'll see that. So now all these things I previously mentioned, society has a huge paradox. What is this paradox? Well, basically I was saying that it's probably built on a premise that the weak are being protected from the strong. So as with that being said, it may be seemingly utopian on the surface in this aspect via culture and reasoning. What's being taught in schools, what's being demonstrated. Like if you look at someone working, they look like they're doing the diligent work and so forth. So on essence, on the surface, it looks like it's an anti-survival of the fittest, which is the propagation, the message that might be, the message that might be justifying society's relevance and so forth. However, this paradox, this is somewhat challenged by the paradox that it may be dystopian underneath the surface, because remember, there is a biological component to, and also a consciousness component to the individuals, which affects the communities, affects the families, affects the nations, the countries, the politics, all that good stuff. There's a conflict between the two of these things. These two are two opposing forces. So as a result, that more rational biological components may be warping society into something in which survival of the fittest still stands, but it's in a different form. What form might that be? Form might be in the form of half-truths, like I mentioned before, which is basically certain things that would keep society going, because maybe there's it benefits certain people that want it to keep going, and so forth. I'm not saying this because I'm like anti-society. All I'm saying is that this paradox affects each and every one of us, and being aware of it can be very useful to you going forward with your lives. Keeping in the back of your mind from time. So that being said, keeping that paradoxical nature of society itself in mind, what can one do about it? What are a set of options that one might have? Well, a set of options that one might be able to take is one of several. So I put a quote here by Mahatma Gandhi, which is, "Be the change you want to see in the world." What this would mean is that if you see a particular thing that you believe is wrong, or you think you should be doing, and so forth, you lead by example. So you live the life that, if you want to see a particular change in the world, you will make that your life about that, in the sense of you live your life that way. If you don't believe people should lie, you try to be more honest, or as honest as you can be. Be the most honest person out there, something of that nature. Another one is you can adapt. So let's say society is how it is currently, it has this half-truths and all these things that goes on. You can adapt to a situation, learn the rules of the game, adapt to it, play the game, and you do what you need to do within that scope. Another option you can do is just passively go with the flow. What I mean by this is basically, you may not necessarily even pay attention to it. You're just like, it's whatever, and you just you do what you just basically, you're not necessarily fighting. You don't necessarily worry about it. You just let bygones be bygones, and that's it. The next one is, and I'm going to say this as a disclaimer, I'm not a proponent for any of this nonsense. I'm just stating facts and possibilities. That's it. So you can be aware of them, as opposed to, things happen, you're just like, oh man, what happened? What's going on? That's the intent of this video on my channel. Another option is you can try to challenge certain aspects of society. People call that radical, but I'm not, which is basically, you challenge it. Maybe you do petitions, maybe you talk to delegates, things of that nature. Can be more extreme than that, but I'm not going to talk about that. The next one is you can opt out. You can just pretty much be like, I'm not going to participate in society. You go the hikikomori route and so forth, which is like, I'm unplugging. I want nothing to do with society. I'm not going to participate, and that's it. That's an option that you can also have. These options can be mixed and matched as well. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Now, why would awareness of what society does, or you'll be like, oh, society is full of nonsense and so forth. But I personally don't think that's enough of a solid argument. You know, might want to look into why society might be nonsense or you think that way. And the reason I'm saying this is you can form better conclusions, better be able to orient your life in a more appropriate or uh, favorable manner in which you find more satisfying, even if you increase it by 1% more, you know. But like I said, that's up to you. Um, so the awareness in this respect would be essential to identify what options you have, to see where you stand in society, so you know where you stand. Decide what you want and its cost. So if you make a decision, oh, I want to make a 6-figure salary, know the cost, how much years you have to spend to establish that, how easy or difficult it might be. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you know, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur, what's it going to cost me? Well, how much time, money, all that stuff is going to potentially cost me. Develop a counter plan. So if you see society does certain things in one way, I said before with the adaptation option that you might have, you can develop a counter plan. If they are they make new laws that restrict certain liberties that you might enjoy that are hopefully not criminal or something of that matter, but you think it's not fair, you can, like I said, do a petition or, you know, alternate your pattern or something of that sort. The next aspect of awareness being essential is you can put yourself in, and this is probably the most important one, you can better put yourself in someone's shoes to understand those around you. Remember, society doesn't only affect you, it affects people around you, thus making them come to certain conclusions and certain actions and so forth. So it's very important. The pyramid I show you earlier with the going up from humans to politics to nations, all the way up to you, the individual, we're all in this society together. Even if we live in different parts of the world, that might be a different society you live in, although it's a grander society where human beings are interacting. It can help put you in a better position, like, wait, why did this person do this? Why did they do that? And so forth. With that, I'd just like to conclude. The motto of this channel is remember, reflect, you know, reflect on things around you, things you hear, see, and so forth, on your own experiences. From there, you develop a framework, and from that framework, you take, or plan, you take action. All right, this has been another video from 3Course Thoughts. I hope you guys have, once again, having a good one. If you found the video helpful, or if you know, valuable, please share it. Don't forget to comment if you have something to say, and like the video for the YouTube algorithm. I'd appreciate that if you found it valuable. But anyway, you guys have a good one.